and it's called The Game of Guns. But first I have to set the stage for the main player of this particular game, President Clinton. Now, love him or hate him, you have to remember that he's part of the secret government and an important part of the Bush network. He was elected to 2 terms as president with his first election win in 1992, against George Bush. Like Carter, he was a small state Southern governor, but unlike Carter he hadn't served in the military. But that didn't matter because he, and his wife, knew how to take orders. Bush's plan, remember, was a 30-plus-minus-year plan designed to keep the presidency in the hands of the secret government. He knew that he could be re-elected in his own right in 1992 against Clinton, but to do so he then wouldn't have his son in office during the crucial years of 2001 to 2004. So Bush went to his good friend and fellow network member, Ross Perot, to run as an independent in the 1992 election. And the plan worked. With Perot in the race, just enough votes were taken away from Bush to allow Clinton the win. Now Clinton's role during the 1990s was to use the power of his office, and the government, to prepare the American people for the disasters, soon to come in the early 21st century. With one catch though, he couldn't tell us about it. So how could he do it? Well, back to guns now. If you ask any 10 people right now, was President Clinton pro-gun or anti-gun? How many do you think would answer pro-gun? Right, nobody. But, would it surprise you to learn that under Clinton the United States saw the largest increase in gun ownership in history? Well, let's look at some facts. More guns. Less crime. Table omitted. Since 1991 the nation's violent crime rate has decreased every year, 35 overall, to a 27-year low, according to the FBI. According to federal crime victim surveys, violent crime is at a 30-year low. Meanwhile, the number of privately owned guns, including hundreds of thousands of automatic weapons, and nearly identical guns, has risen by about 60 million. The number of large magazines has risen by 50 million since 1994. Today, there are more guns and large magazines than ever. Keep remembering too, this happened during the Clinton administration. So how did they do it? The answer is in understanding human psychology, and the use of those memes we talked about earlier. Let me explain. The meme was that guns were going to be taken away. The reaction to this meme was to make sure they weren't going to take your gun away. And for those Americans who didn't have guns, they bought them. For those that had them already, they bought more. The demand for guns even exceeded the manufacturing capabilities of our nation's arms makers. Clinton's solution? Simple. He opened the floodgates for foreign arms and ammunition makers, by abolishing almost all of the previously enacted laws on importing guns into the United States. During the Clinton administration American citizens armed themselves, with more guns and ammunition than all of the armies, and all of the soldiers who fought in World War II, and he's called a liberal? What's important to remember about this issue, though, is that Clinton, like Bush, and the whole network of the secret government, knew that the average American was not going to be protected from the disastrous effects of what is soon to befall us. But they also knew that a large minority of Americans would prepare and survive, and in surviving would need the means to protect themselves and their families. But by far the most important contribution President Clinton made towards achieving the aims and goals of the secret government was in the building up and increasing the power of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. Most people in government already refer to FEMA as the secret government of the United States.